Testing, testing. All right, hello everybody. Um, I cannot guarantee that I will go for very long. Um, hello. Oh, there we go. I will see how long I can take this. Um, I guess just for some background. Uh, this is something I heard about. Um, I don't know how long ago. Not that long ago. Like a month ago. I got like 5 minutes into this video and I couldn't really stand to keep watching. And I hate myself right now. So, why don't I just see why don't I just take a gander at what's been what's been happening over here. Hello, Xavel? Zavel? Yeah. So again, I'll see how long I can actually take this. It's possible I will just stop after 5 minutes again because this video is probably going to make me extremely angry. But yeah, we're about to see, aren't we? Um, all right. I guess just a second. I'm gonna post this on Twitter as well. Um, you were you were not late to the party. On anything really. Zavel, this is basically like this is me putting myself in pain is what this is. It's realistically what this is me putting myself in pain. Um, hmm. Okay. I was gonna say I don't know what caption to put. I was gonna put a caption like committing self harm on stream or something, but it's that's a little I think I'd get banned for that one. Um, so maybe let's do what's a good caption to put on this one? All right, let's. I haven't. I've watched 5 minutes of it. When I watched 5 minutes of it, it made me extremely angry. Um, no, I'm not saying you would. It was. I was joking. Um, I captioned it as subjecting myself to immeasurable psychic damage because I hate myself. Um, yeah, that's what I did. All right, so as you may be able to see, uh, I've got Minesweeper in the corner. This is what I will be doing to help all of you out there who cannot pay attention to things. That includes me. All right. Let's see. Let's get an audio check here.
I do
How's
agree on the autism and
so,
ADHD
so how is the audio compared to me?
thing.
Are
I
you
don't
able
think
to hear me?
vaccines
Is the
cause
video too
autism. I
quiet?
think
Too loud?
modern society causes autism.
Um, like I'm trying to look at the levels. It's a little
I
hard
do
for
agree on
me
the
to
autism and
figure
ADHD
it
thing.
out.
I don't think
I can try to turn it down, maybe to like negative 14 or something. I don't know. Oh, it was
vaccines cause
balanced.
autism.
All right,
I
well,
think
shit.
modern
I turned
society
it down
causes
already.
autism. It's not a
Um,
chemical thing.
so what do
Autism
you
is
guys
just what
think?
happens to your
Can you
brain
hear me just
when
fine? Still? I'll actually wait for you guys to respond first and not just go right ahead. Okay, yeah, I did turn him down a little bit, so hopefully it's fine.
I do.
Yeah. All right. Let's just get started. Let's see how long I can keep my composure here.
I do agree on the autism and ADHD thing. I don't think vaccines cause autism. I think
That's a good start.
uh, modern society causes autism.
Not so good of a follow up.
It's not a chemical thing. Autism is just what happens to your brain when you have no friends, don't go outside, you watch cartoons all day. One of the cartoons you watch is My Little Pony's Friendship is Magic. You go into Google that at 12 and find pornography of it. Your brain chemistry is instantly rewired, and the rest of your life is spent drawing like increasingly graphic imitations of the stuff that you saw that imprinted onto your mind when you were a child. I think that autism is caused by like environmental factors.
Okay, so I just wanted to let that one play out. Uh, where to even start with that one? So again, I'm familiar with the first 5 minutes of this video, but only a little bit because I watched it like a month ago. Already, this is very wrong. For one, you on the one hand, he says that it's not a chemical thing, but then he also says that it's caused by the environment, like a making like a chemical imprint on your brain in some way. So, would that not make it a chemical thing? Turn up the video a tiny bit. Okay, I can do that. Me. Oh my god. How is
I think
how is it now?
like increasingly graphic imitations of the stuff that you saw that imprinted onto your mind when you were a child. I think that autism is caused by like environmental factors. I think people should
How's it now? Too loud? Uh, just right? Awesome. All right. Well, just to continue what I was saying, um, it it's something being a chemical process and it being caused by environment are not mutually exclusive. Um, it could be a bit louder. Okay. You're not really outnumbered. There are two people, so I can let's make it like 10. 10 negative 10 rather.
probably like a child to Google that at 12 and find pornography of it. You have no
So
friends,
how
don't
is it
go
now?
outside, you watch
Um,
cartoons all day. One of the cartoons you watch is My Little Pony's Friendship is Magic. You go into Google that at 12 and find pornography of it. Your brain chemistry is instantly rewired, and the rest of your life is spent drawing like increasingly graphic the imitations
This
of the stuff
good?
that you saw that imprinted
This
onto
good?
your mind when you were a child. I think that autism
Okay. I'm just going to assume that that's fine for now. Um, yeah, so anyway, what I was saying was these things are not mutually exclusive. Like you can and indeed he says as much or it seems to imply as much. I guess what he would mean is that it's not a chemical thing that's induced by genetics, but I I don't think that this is a how do I put this? I don't even think that you're asking the right question if you're asking like is it genetic or is it environmental? Um and I hope I don't need to say this, but it is very much not the case that autism is caused by having no friends and watching cartoons. Um I would hope that people would know this. Uh so, I guess maybe you could say he's being glib, but I based on the rest of what I saw, I don't think that's true. So, anyway, let's continue.
is caused by like environmental factors. I think people should probably like engage a little bit more socially, I feel. It's probably good. Same with ADHD. Dude, everyone has ADHD now. You notice that?
No. No, I don't notice that.
Like people who think this read Foucault, okay?
No. No. That's not Mm, no. No. That's not what it means. That's not what Foucault means. That's not what he was saying. Uh oh my god. No, no. All right, let's hear him out. Let's see what he means by read Foucault.
But not too closely because he was French. Like everyone has ADHD now. It's the environment. Everyone's got smartphones. It's true. The idea that like
Say, okay. Let's see if he refines this position at all. Like, I hope I don't need to do a lot of legwork to say that this is wrong, right? Like that ADHD and autism are caused by people having phones or not getting uh enough socialization because like it's I think it should be evident, but people with autism and ADHD like to have friends. They don't like to not have friends most of the time. I mean, I like to have friends. Um, it's just that making friends is often much harder because of differences in how they want to like play with toys or differences in how autistic versus non-autistic kids get treated by adults and by their peers. Like it's baffling to me that this is how that you could just like say this so flippantly without any kind of citation or grounding or whatever. Yeah.
like oh your brain chemistry and the way you
Also, I'm gonna
respond to
speed this up.
environmental stimuli is just hard written into the code of your brain and can't be changed. So there's no way for
Yes, Bafer.
an autistic person to become brain chemistry and the way you respond to environmental stimuli is just hard written into the code of your brain and can't be changed. So there's no way for an autistic person to become unautistic or an unautistic person to become autistic. That's bullshit. Why does anyone
Well, I don't want to say that it's impossible because we don't know, but that's the thing. Like we just don't. We don't know. Like I'm sure that you could do a lot of different things, but nothing we know of actually works. Like people have been trying to just like cure autism for years and years, like for however long, ever since it was like a coherent diagnosis, it was trying to be cured. Um, hasn't really. has not really worked so far. In fact, attempts at it have been extremely abusive. I don't know, Ice Climber. I don't know. I'm doing it because this has been stewing in my head for like a month, and I just need to see what he says. You know, I just need to see what he says.
Anyone think that's true? Your brain is literally a machine that's designed to change in response to environmental stimuli. And then people are like, well, no, actually, the
No, the brain is not designed to do anything because the brain is not designed. Nobody made the brain, man. It is not designed for anything. You're an atheist, right? If you're an atheist, you don't believe in design. The brain is not designed.
only way you can get ADHD is if you're born with the wiring in a given way, and then that's it, and it's always that way. Like, no, of course not. But
So this is my issue is that this is just a false dichotomy where you think that either it's, you know, you're born with the ADHD gene and then you get ADHD and then that's like and that's the only alternative to Vosh's explanation of ADHD and autism, which is that you stayed in your room too long and you played on your phone too much. Um, I shouldn't have to like say this, but this is not true. These are not the only two options, and in fact, I think that both are ultimately part of a the same problematic logic, which is the separation of genes and environment. Like genes are not themselves. How do I explain this? Genes do not work this way. Genes um are not like these like little people who run around and like make you who you are and have the exact same presentation in every single environment and do the exact same things when interacting with the environment or with other genes. Like this is not what um this is the issue I think at root is that you're trying to find uh hello Trico. I know, which is why here's the thing, Bafer, is that I've been told that he says that he's not anymore, which is weird. Like I don't know that. I mean, if you oh shit, I don't know. Fucking Christ. Um, I fucking clicked the button on my mouse. Hello, Phantom. But yeah, I just like don't even know what to say to this. Like, hold on, where was I?
tapestry, a set of slides. But it's not vaccines that do it. Why the fuck would vaccines be the only way you can get ADHD even way? And oh, actually, the only way you can. Your brain is literally a machine that's designed to
Yeah,
change in response
this
to
is where I
environmental
was.
stimuli. And then people are like, well, no, actually, the only way you can get ADHD is if you're born with the wiring in a given way, and then that's it, and it's always that way. Like, no, of course not. But it's not.
Well, this is the problem is that you're assuming like a default state, which is neurotypicality, and then you somehow get ADHD or you get autism. I don't know any reason to think that that's what's happening here. Like, why are we assuming the default state of things is neurotypicality?
Vaccines that do it. Why the fuck would vaccines do it? Are you claiming there's a cure for autism? Yeah, going outside. Sometimes.
Oh my god. I know that's meant to be a joke. I know that's meant to be a joke, but
It's an exacerbation of a normal variation in human brain chemistry. Yeah. Why does he joke?
no, you can't say yeah to that when you were just talking about how like no. You can't just say that when you were literally just talking about how autism is caused by not having friends and watching cartoons, man. You can't
Okay. Read Foucault.
no, you read okay. You should read Foucault because this is not what Foucault talks about. Foucault was not like Foucault was not even really talking about the causes um of like brain variation in this way. Like this that was not what he was interested in. He wasn't interested in saying like no, it's actually not your genes, it's the environment. Like that was not his point at all. Like I know this even despite not having read that much of Foucault. Like it's not that was not his point. His point was not to say that these are the causes of madness specifically. His point was about like the social category of madness and how this social category is historically contingent. He was not talking about like what the causes are because he wouldn't talk about that. That's not like in his for one, it's not really in his line of expertise and it's also not really relevant. Like it's not relevant to his project. Like the causes could be anything and he would still um have like the same things to say. And not to mention that like this logic that people need that people's madness is caused by being improperly habituated to society. This is something that Foucault identifies specifically and speaks out against um when he's talking about like the treatment of the mad in insane asylums. He talks about specific ways of um specific ways that people try to cure madness, and one of the things that people tried to do was essentially immerse them in society of some kind. Now, it wasn't a real society, to be clear. Like they were still being institutionalized, but they were being one of the forms he was talking about was called the retreat, where at these retreats, the mad would often they would have like these gala events and they would play act basically as quote unquote normal people in society, especially normal bourgeois subjects. And this was meant essentially to cure them of their madness by, I guess, habituating them to like what society is really supposed to be like. And Foucault specifically talks about how this is itself a problem because it is othering the mad from themselves. Like it's trying to make the person habituate themselves to a specific kind of social order that they are not party to. And that in saying that their way of being is not correct. Like this is, again, this is like so basic. This is so basic. I'm never gonna get through this.
You are too bought in on the medicalization of the human mind, that everything's categorized in separate boxes or whatever.
No, no, you are too bought in on the medicalization. Because if you were not bought in on the medicalization, you would not be saying you would not be like proposing like these unicausal factors for autism as like a coherent category. Like you wouldn't like to be clear, there are plenty of critiques of whether or not you can have a coherent category for designating people autistic or not. There's a paper I read a long time ago. It's called like not ADHD, ASD validity is the title. And basically what it talks about is how there aren't really concrete biomarkers for autism, and there also aren't that many concrete like what's the word? Like social or symptomatic factors for autism. That like there's huge variations across different people that are called autistic. Um Hold on, let me get a drink. And so if you really wanted to make this case about, autism being kind of like an amalgam category that doesn't have like a very specific reference, You could, but this is not doing that. This is not what you're doing. You're just buying into the medicalization model, and you are proposing a different pathway to how the condition of autism emerges.
ADHD is 100% genetic. Brain structure is
Okay, so obviously the chatter that he's responding to here is also wrong. Um, like ADHD is not 100% genetic either. This is not. It would be nice if he had better opposition, but you know.
genetic. The brain is complicated. Everyone is like a complex tapestry, a set of sliders and a million different variables. ADHD, autism, basically every
Yeah, this
condition
one
that you
is a
can get,
bust.
they're all just like exacerbations of existing variants, and that variance can change over your
He like literally five, like not even 5 minutes ago, like a minute ago, he was saying that it's caused by specific environmental factors, and now he's saying that it's an exacerbation of normal variation. Like you can't have it both ways, man. You can't.
life. Of course it can. This is factual. We understand this physically, right? Some people might have a physical propensity for building a lot of, say, muscle on their shoulders. Like some people are born and they just have strong shoulders. Like that's just genetics. Other people are born with weaker shoulders. But we don't categorize people in like, sorry, you're a weak shoulderkin and a strong shoulderkin, and there's no way for one to become the other. A person with weak shoulders can work out, and some of them can end up getting shoulders that would, be the envy of people who are born with strong shoulders. And
Okay, this is a very bad analogy because it kind of implies that there is like this formula that you can follow to become non-autistic. And this is just not what we observe in reality. Like if you wanted to say yes, it is a me stream. But yeah, like if you wanted to say that autism is like being strong-shouldered, there would presumably be like some specific mechanism by which you could become autistic or not reliably. And we know from the fact that people have tried and failed to cure autism that this is not true. But people have not tried and failed to become strong-shouldered.
there are people who are born with strong shoulders that can let that shit atrophy, and their shoulders get weak. ADHD is 80 to 90% genetic. Wait till you find out what fat and muscle distribution are. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm right. You're wrong. Goodbye. It's not vaccines.
To integrate nutrition-based interventions into our healthcare programs like Medicaid and Medicare.
I'm sorry, wait. Autistic and ADHD brains are literally shaped different. You're actually cooked. All brains are shaped different. You're talking about like a wide set of characteristics. You're talking about averages. Unironically, you guys talk about neuroatypicality the way transphobes talk about sex. Men.
I mean, in a sense, maybe, but you're not really doing much better, man. Maybe the problem, maybe. But yeah, like, sorry. Like, what are you not doing if this is the issue? Is that you are still buying into the logic. You're just buying into it from, I think, a different perspective. The trans like the transphobe analogy is actually a really good one, in fact. But not for the reason you think, or the reason Vosh thinks. So if you actually know anything about like how sex as a category came to be, what you know is that it was not invented for the benefit of trans people. The categories of sex and the separation of sex and gender was made specifically to rescue the binary opposition of male and female. The reason for that being that in order that there were people who were sexually ambiguous, And, we have known this throughout history. Or rather, not there are people whose gender has always been ambiguous, and that can be intersex people or it could be trans people. But for whatever reason, some people had ambiguous genders. And the separation of sex and gender was a way of saying that essentially you could mold anybody as a blank slate. That if somebody did not have a body that fit within the socially acceptable range of variation, that you could, in principle, just modify their body and raise them as a different gender. So the separation of sex and gender was meant for that purpose. It was meant to essentially codify the social roles that came to be associated with what we now call sex. Before that point, the relationship between sex and gender was complex. And to be clear, it's not like this is not a sex essentialist position, because the point I'm making is not that sex is primary. The point I'm making is that gender is primary. That sex is a form of gender as inscribed upon the body. And the reason that this is actually a good analogy, but not for the reason that Vosh thinks, is because he is making the same problematic distinction, where he seems to think that there is this underlying person, there's this underlying physiological component, and that there's a bunch of social stuff on top of it, and that social stuff on top of it is what autism is. But there is this biological underpinning that if you try hard enough, you can actually get to with enough work. And again, this is the sex gender distinction logic, basically, was that you could essentially mold people to be anything you wanted them to be by changing their body and by raising them in a different social situation. So he is, in a sense, right that the people in his chat are talking about neurodivergence like TERFs talk about sex. But he is also talking about neurodivergence in a way that another variant of oppressive institution talks about sex and gender.
Men have no fat tissue on their breast. Women do. Well, it's a little bit more complicated than that. And there are a variety of chemical and environmental stimuli that can change that in one direction or the other. No, they're different. You're not a doctor? You're right. Unlike doctors, I've gotten my medical information on the subject from sources more recent than the 1970s. Chad is always
No, you haven't. No, you haven't.
wrong. Never forget. In clinical psychology, there's a model called the biopsychosocial model, and it's basically the most applicable model for every disorder. Chad still hasn't caught on to the fact that the diagnosis criteria for all of these conditions is meeting social checkboxes. They're like,
yes, but that does not. Oh my god. Yes, this is true, but it does not mean what you think it means. Because you are still proposing the idea that there is this underlying primordial person that's just being basically molded and corrupted away from the ideal. So you're not doing something that's better.
No, man, they're innate, super ultra intrinsic characteristics. Never mind the fact the way they're diagnosed is by determining whether or not it influences your life, which is a social and subjective criteria set. No. Can I have an example of how sensory processing issues can be created by environment? Yeah, easily. If you don't go outside very often, you're less used to sensory processing.
No. Oh my god. No. Okay. Alright, I remember this. This in specific is extremely dangerous. Because that is not the origin of sensory processing issues at all. Sensory processing issues, for one, are not always about like heightened sensitivity. Sometimes sensory processing issues go the other direction, and they are a lack of sensitivity. So, for example, some autistic kids will stare at like flashing screens, like the kinds of flashing screens that would give give an epileptic person like a seizure, those kinds of things. Most people are not do not like to look at those, right? Because they are quite stimulating. A lot of autistic kids like those things. And again, this is not all autistic kids. A lot of kids are light sensitive. But the idea that it's like the sensory processing issue here comes from like a lack of engagement with the environment is like ridiculous. Especially because how would you even know that you have a sensory processing issue if you didn't ever engage with the stimulus to begin with? Like, I mean, I agree the problem. Like, yeah, but this is what I'm saying is it's like he kind of has like this specific idea of what it should be. I think you're right. I think he is working backward. But yeah, anyway, as I was saying, like here's a good example. I don't deal well with um rough surfaces, I guess is the way that I would say it. So I can actually like I my wall right now is like dry and very and like pretty rough, but it's not like spiky rough. It's not even really sandpaper rough. I don't know how to describe it, but there's this roughness amount. And in some cases for me, these kinds of things like actually just send shivers up my spine and make me feel extremely unpleasant. Um, and one of the things that did this for me was sidewalk chalk. Um, yes. Literally the problem. Like the minute you said that, I started talking about it. But yeah, like sidewalk chalk. I could not do sidewalk chalk as a kid because every time I would try to write with it, I would get these like chills up my spine that just felt really unpleasant. Um, I'm watching a video of Vosh being dumb about autism. This is also the case with some erasers, like some like very dry erasers, like not dry erasers as in like dry erase boards, but like normal pencil erasers that have gone really stiff. And I try to erase with them and it just like ugh, don't like it. Don't like it. No amount of dealing with that and using those kinds of erasers or using sidewalk chalk or touching my wall has ever stopped me from feeling that way. Like more exposure to the stimulus has not made it go away. Like it's helped it, I've developed strategies of dealing with it, but it has not made my sensory issues go away. It's just ridiculous. Like like such an easy thing to debunk, and he's just like saying it as if it's like total fact.
That's the easiest thing. Yeah, if you go out, yes, if you go outside often and you expose yourself to lots of new things, then you're a lot more used to that. And if you don't, you're not. That's literally
No. Okay, but I went outside a lot as a kid. In fact, like I literally went camping like several times a year. To be fair, I love camping too. I love being outside. It did not cure me of my autism. It didn't make me less like, oh my god. Yeah, Stell, it certainly feels that way, huh?
Literally true. That manifests physically. So you're saying autism is just a skill issue? I'm saying life is a skill issue, okay? Don't be stupid. But autistic people can't really overcome that normally. I genuinely, you're gonna make me side with RFK Jr. It's you go from like basically no one in society having autism to like 1 in 5 of you mother having autism or ADHD, and people are like, no, it's just genetically it went up or something. I don't know. The scientists haven't figured it out yet. There was
Okay. I want to again. I will again emphasize that his chat is being dumb in a different way than he is. Than he is. But that does not mean that he's correct. Like, the fact that we are diagnosing autism more does not mean that environmental factors are causing autism to manifest in more people. It doesn't necessarily need to mean that. It could also be that, for example, people are getting better at noticing the symptoms, or autistic people are more or less likely to have to mask. Like, this is like pretty evident that if you in the past had like a lot of sensory issues and didn't like talking to people and had like weird facial expressions and stuff like that, and you didn't want to be a social outcast, you might, for example, just start to deal with it and start to try and imitate what everyone else is doing, in which case you would no longer be diagnosed with autism. You know? And I'm sure Vosh would say, oh, well, I guess that person was cured. But were they really? Like, were they really, like, cured of anything? Or were they just having to, like, suppress the way that they wanted to behave in society because the rest of society was, like, discriminating against them for it? Now, does that mean that, like, all of the behaviors that an autistic person develops are because of the autism? Of course not. Because that's not, like, that's not what autism is. Like, autism is not a, as I've said, it's not, like, the most coherent category by any means. But that does not mean that you can just, like, say that you can't just give these unicausal environmental explanations. Like, I really hate how nature versus nurture is taught. I hate how, like, the debate that's given about it is that, like, on the one hand you have people who believe it's nature, and then on the other hand you have people who believe it's nurture. Because then you get people like Vosh who think that, like, who like want to take a side in the debate. Kind of like how, you know, like Marxists, like, or not Marxists, but like fake Marxists will say that it's will say that idealism and materialism are like these two, like, separate, distinct things, and that they take the side of materialism, whereas liberals take the side of idealism or whatever. What do you mean, Kat? Like, what's going on in general, or for this live stream? Yeah.
there was a genetic bottleneck and suddenly everyone got ADHD. Dude, come on. We're able to diagnose it now? No, that's not actually the consensus on the issue. It does seem like people are getting it more. More people are meeting the criteria. Do you not? Okay, literally, go over the
So here's the problem, though, is that, like, the consensus, insofar as there is a consensus on this, is that ADHD was being over-diagnosed. That was the consensus, I guess, or that was the worry. So even going by, like, this logic of like treating ADHD as an actual disorder and then saying that it's caused by environment and more people are meeting the criteria, that was not what was being said about it. Like, what was being said about it by the experts was essentially that doctors were not evaluating people very closely. That was the idea. Um, Twitch poll BS. I haven't been paying attention to Twitch poll BS. Uh, for the most part, or at least I've not been actively involved, and I think that's the right decision, given what's been happening in Twitch poll. But yeah.
Diagnosis criteria for ADHD. Go over it, like look at it, the boxes you have to check, and ask yourself, is it possible that there are any changes in society that might make more people meet these criteria? And if yes, why are you arguing with me? Internet access IMO? True. Symptoms of inattention have to be present for at least 6 months. Symptoms, here we go. DSM-5 criteria for ADHD diagnosis. Let's see if any of these could possibly be altered due to environmental stimuli. Vosh, read a scientific paper, challenge impossible. Listen, you can be smug or correct. I'm sorry, you can be smug and correct, okay? You can't be smug and incorrect, all right? You have to watch it, man. You have to watch it. Often fails to give close attention to details or makes careless mistakes in schoolwork, at work, or other activities. So guys, do you think this is an innate biological characteristic, or do you think it's possible that environmental factors...
Yeah, see, this is the issue, is that, like, going through a list of these things and showing how somebody might... No, for sure. Here's the thing, it's like, what I'm not trying... Again, like, chatters are being dumb here, like Vosh's chatters, and trying to say that it's, like, 100% genetic, and that it's, like, written into your soul or whatever. That's clearly not the case. But it's also clearly not the case that what you have here is society just changing and that it's making people have ADHD, you know? Yeah. Yeah, and like as I was going over earlier, like I think that the like analogies to he was trying to make an analogy earlier to trans people, and I don't think he understood like how he was, undermining himself that way. Like obviously there are Oh, for sure. It is but it sure, he mhm. Exactly. We are all the human ADHD. I don't know. I'm Again, it's a struggle because his chat is wrong. Like his chat is wrong that it's like 100% genetic. I wouldn't endorse that about anything because like the correct position is to reject the binary opposition of sex and not sex and gender, of genes and environment, because genes and environment interact. Genes and environment are mutually co-constitutive. You need both for an organism. An organism does not have, like, an organism in the wrong environment will just not form at all. And the same is true of genes. Yeah. That would be nice if he read Anti-Oedipus, but probably not going to happen.
such as the
Like the problem is that I don't even really I kind of cringe at the thought of him reading Anti-Oedipus because I don't think he would understand it enough. Like I don't think he could possibly like given that he says he's read Foucault, and I don't think he has, but maybe when he was in college, like his professors gave him like a couple chapters of Foucault to read, or like maybe an essay or two, right? Maybe that's the case. He came away with like the most with like a very bad reading of Foucault because he seems to think Foucault would like endorse his position on this issue. No, for sure. It does sidestep all of this because that's what I mean is that, and so does Foucault. Foucault also sidesteps all of this because this is not what these thinkers found important. Trying to find, like, literally the exact, like, causes of all of these different things was not the point. It was never the point. Because no matter what causes it, there is still, like, it wouldn't. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway.
presence of stuff that rewards like short attention spans, like I don't know, TikToks or whatever, the internet broadly. Can this be changed? Can this be changed in a person? It can be changed in a person? Okay. Please look up the definition of neurodevelopmental disorder. I'm begging you right now. I don't understand why you guys, you know what I hate about you guys? You're weak. You refuse to believe that you have any role or responsibility in who you are as a person. People love to throw their hands up in the air and go, there's nothing I
So I don't think he does read.
can do. You refuse to believe that you have neurodevelopmental disorder. I'm begging you right now. I don't understand why you guys, you know what I hate about you guys? You're weak. You refuse to believe that you have any role or responsibility in who you are as a person. People love to throw their hands up in the air and go, there's nothing I can do. It's very frustrating. A lot of you people could have much better lives if you just took hold of the reins, you know?
Oh my god, man. Oh my god. And this is like I don't know, man. Do you not think that like maybe there's like an impediment to having a better life, one that you're more satisfied with, is people constantly trying to tell you that it's your fault for like having the sensory problems you do, or for behaving socially the way that you do, or for not accepting like the benign things that you do in social situations that nonetheless are against like the codes that we see. I mean, yeah, this is literally just clean your room bullshit. It's
A neurodevelopmental disorder is a disability that affects the brain and nervous system. I am looking at it right now. What do I do now with this information now that I'm looking at it? Symptoms. Problems with social integration. Behavioral problems. There's no way this could be influenced by environmental factors.
oh my fucking god. Yes, obviously, these things can be influenced by environmental factors. That's not what that isn't a what's the word I'm looking for? That does not mean that you get to make these environmental factors unicausal. Because again, genes and environment are co-constitutive. They are not like these there is not like this strict dualism between your genes and your environment.
Reduced emotional regulation. Really? Purely genetic? Just a one-to-one? You're born with it or you're not? Okay.
This is the problem, is that the terms that he is using, right? Like behavioral problems or reduced emotional regulation, right? These things are also defined socially. They are not like these objective scientific definitions you have from on high. So obviously, it's the case that these things are influenced by environment, but so are the very terms that you are using to talk about it. And you want to question, like, why people have behavioral problems, quote unquote, but you don't want to question, like, what it means to have a behavioral problem in the first place, and, like, how that's changed over time. Like, one of the things that's considered a behavioral problem for autists is stimming. Specifically, like even non-harmful stimming is considered problematic from the perspective of treating quote-unquote autism. And as a result, people are maligned on that basis. Like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, you can't essay post, folks. A lot of people are mad right now. You have to dial it back. PTSD is a disorder, for example. It's caused by environment and usually isn't chronic. Disorder doesn't mean inherent to you. I'm pretty sure you're born with PTSD or you're not, Thana. It's a spectrum of nature or nurture. Yeah, like everything else. So why are there people in chat who are so angry at the idea that nature...
No, it's not a spectrum. The opposition between nature and nurture is illusory. It is an illusory opposition. There is not this thing we call nature and this thing we call nurture, and then everything is caused by either nature or nurture. No, they are co-constitutive. Nature and nurture are co-constitutive. They are both mutually influencing one another all the time. Yeah, that's the thing, Kat, is that, like, one of the things that happens is that when you try to stop autistic people from stimming, a lot of the times what they will do is develop new stims. many of which are more harmful than the ones that you were trying to suppress, by the way. Like, and like you can even see that in the literature, like when people are trying to extinguish, which is the word they use, extinction is the word they use actually, but when they're trying to make a stem go extinct in yeah, anyway, well, yeah, when they're trying to when they're trying to make somebody's stems go extinct, they what often happens is that the kids develop new stems that are much more harmful to themselves. Um, like for example, like pulling out their hair or bashing their head against the wall because they're being like blocked from doing something that they would want to be doing. And does that mean that like it's biologically encoded within them to like flap their hands? Of course not. No one is saying that. Obviously not. Because like an autistic person without arms would not be able to flap their hands. They would have none. But still, there seems to be people exactly zincite zincite yeah, I'm gonna say zincite. Exactly, it would not be clear, and this is the issue, is that he seems to think it is clear that modern society, whatever that is causing these changes to happen. You have no fucking idea. You have no idea, man.
Nature might influence something like this. Guys, that was a joke. PTSD is inheritable. It's not inheritable, like genetically. Heritability and genetics aren't the same thing. We've talked about this with IQ. Yeah, heritable in the sense that trauma from a parent can be passed down behaviorally, not in that the baby's brain has the memory of the... Please, this is the IQ thing. ADHD, oh, sorry, PTSD isn't a personality disorder. Do you think personality disorders are you're just born with or not? Personality disorders? Bro, your personality develops as you grow up.
I mean, he's right about, like, again, Chad is being dumb. But the problem is that he seemed like what Vosh seems to think, like with respect to personality disorders, is that you can just like cure a personality disorder, that you can just like make them like if you just went up to somebody with ASPD, like you could like I guess dog train them into having empathy again. When there doesn't seem to be good evidence of that. Like there doesn't seem to be good evidence of the idea that you can get them to like develop these kinds of physiological responses. You can like get them to start thinking you can get them to like engage, I guess, a muscle of perspective taking. That's like one thing you could do. But it's not it's not clear in any respect that you can just like cure these things by changing your behavior.
They think you're saying ADHD and autism aren't real at all. They're actually reactionary on this. They are taking the same position that like TERFs take towards sex. Chat's gonna make me crash out. You're discounting genetic memory. Take your shit back to Lacan or whatever the other one is. Okay, get out of here.
No. Or whatever the other one is. Jesus Christ.
Please go on autism yourself. I don't know if I'm the best example you could point to because I met the diagnosis criteria for autism before, and now I genuinely don't know whether or not I would, because a lot of the criteria are determined by your ability to integrate socially and process emotions, and over those past 20 years, I've gotten much better at those. Like, I don't know why you'd use me as an example. Like, yeah, I've changed as a person, obviously. It's been 20 years. You're supposed to change. That's masking? No, that's not masking. You change as a person. When you grow up, you change. This is what I mean. You people are in some...
Oh my god. Have you noticed that neurotypical people are not very good at processing their emotions either? Like, this is the issue, is that you're not accounting for the fact that correct emotional processing is not this transcendently empiric, like this transcendent category that you can apply to people.
Sufferable. You're incapable of understanding that you have control over your life. Can you like un-ADHD yourself?
You can control some things in your life. That does not mean that you can choose to just rewire your brain like you seem to think, and nor does it mean that we can reliably predict which people will be autistic or reliably predict which environmental factors lead to it.
So, yeah, probably.
Good
If I lived like on a
God.
ranch or something, I don't know. Not everyone can. People can mediate symptoms without it being cured. Autism isn't something you cure. Ooh, sorry, I'm forgetting. I'm arguing with like 19 woke 19.
You, oh my goodness, good God, man. Good God. The, how is it not, from your perspective? If you think all of these things are down to environmental factors and that you can change them and you can go through and change each individual one, how is that not a cure on your view? Like, you literally said you don't think you meet the criteria anymore. From the medicalization perspective, that's the thing, Estelle, is like he claims not to believe in free will. And for what it's worth, I do believe in free will. I just don't believe in the kind of free will that most people think we have. But this is not that. It's not necessarily free will as much as it is like personal responsibility conservatism.
19th century eugenicists. Actually, autism and ADHD are conditions of the brain, the dimple in the skull, corrected, well, perhaps with surgery. You're not getting me. Can we move on? This is so circular. Actually, it's really critical to understanding why RFK Jr. is popular with a group of people. Because unless you're in a bubble and you are like genuinely delusional and you're putting your hands on your ears and going, na 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 na, like everyone can see that more and more and more people are getting autistic and ADHD and shit, you know? Like every
Yeah, but the problem is the medicalization of it, and the problem also is in thinking that it's like wrong to be autistic or that it's a worse way of being a person. What makes RFK Jr. so popular is not that people can see that people are being autistic or whatever. Like, this is confirmation bias, like, obviously. The issue, what makes him popular is that people fundamentally do not like non-normative presentations of behavior, of, like, yeah, of behavior. um Knight, what I mean by free will is, you know how, like, you know the difference between jumping out of a plane and being pushed out of a plane? That's free will. Jumping out of the plane is free will. Being pushed out of the plane is not free will. Um, yeah, that's all it really means. I think is that uh, is that free. What's free is that mean is when it's something is free will when your will, whatever causes your will, rather, aside from whatever causes your will, it's when your will is able to be actualized. If you are able to act upon your will, it's free will. If you're not able to act upon your will, then it's not free will. And that doesn't mean, for example, that there is something like metaphysically deep about what free will is. Like, it could be that your will is caused by a host of other prior antecedents, and in fact, it is. That's correct. But I still think it's useful to talk about people making choices versus people being subject to something, right? Estelle, what do you mean by that? And no, I have not Insight. I don't know what 14 Minesweeper variance is.
everyone can see that. Nobody believes that it's just diagnosis. It's obviously environmental. My ADHD diagnosis didn't take away my control, it gave it to me. Wait. What? Wait, do you think I'm anti-diagnosing ADHD? It's like being diagnosed with depression or whatever. Like sometimes it's genetically heritable. A lot of the times it's environmental. Being diagnosed with it gives you an understanding of what it is, and then you can go on and like work on it, right? You think
No. Oh my God. Stop saying work on it. Because, like, this is inherently implying that it's wrong to be this way and that there's something deficient about you if you are this way. Yes, Shaden Core. I'm a compatibilist. I'm a dirty compatibilist. I know. I know it's boring, but I think it's correct.
when you get diagnosed with depression, you walk out of there and you're like, well, I guess that's me forever. It's because of climate change. Yeah, that's probably true. I was skeptical of this at first, though, considering as leftists, we chalk up basically all of the differences between humans up to environment for the most part. I don't see why this also can't be influenced by environment. Yeah, the position that I've taken here is so, like, objectively, inarguably correct that most of the—
No, man, it's not objectively inarguably correct. You're just waffling. Like, okay, we're at 10:41. Let's see how this video opens again.
I do agree on the autism and ADHD thing. I don't think vaccines cause autism. I think modern society causes autism. It's not a chemical thing. Autism is just what happens to your brain when you have no friends, don't go outside, you watch cartoons all day. One of the cartoons you watch is My Little Pony's Friendship is—
Yeah, so he opened this by saying modern society causes it. That is how he opened the video. And now he's saying, actually, it's this complex, multifaceted process by which genes and environment interact. Like, no, that's not what you said, man. That's not what you said. There's nothing normative about most people are like this. That's the point of literally all psychology. Yeah, no, I agree. It's, or rather, there shouldn't be anything normative about it, but he's treating it as normative. Like, or rather, he is treating it as normative, and other people who like RFK Jr. are treating it as normative. That, like, the fear around autism is not that more people are being diagnosed with autism necessarily. It's that people think that it's like a bad thing that people are autistic. Like, they think it's a worse way of being a person.
correct, that most of the people who are arguing are doing so out of projected insecurity. Which is why I'm trying not to like go after people specifically. It's just I kind of know, you know, it's there's not really much room for disagreement on it. That brains are influenced by the environment, and so are like the—
Isn't what you said, man. That's not what you said. Oh my fucking god.
conditions of the brain. It's a real issue. Can you grow out of Down syndrome too? I mean, you're kind of like misrepresenting my position. Like I might say,
How is it misrepresenting your position? The chatter asked you a fucking question, man. They asked you a question. They didn't misrepresent your position. They asked you a question. I want to see how he answers this, actually.
it's a real issue. Can you grow out of Down syndrome too? I mean, you're kind of like misrepresenting my position. Like I might say, it's like a physical condition, you know, you can get stronger shoulders, and you're like, okay, can you grow back a leg? Not everything. I'll be honest, I don't know as much about Down syndrome. Unlike you, I haven't experienced it, so I don't know much about like the ins and outs, but
My god, dude. You're so fucking tasteless, man. Why are you assuming... They literally asked you a fucking question, man. And you're taking it as, like, a personal attack on you. God, what a fucking tasteless piece of shit, man. What are you doing? Vosh, go 1 second without being ableist challenge. Impossible.
like the point isn't like actually everything's in your head. The point is that the criteria for these conditions are heavily influenced by the environment, and that's obvious when you look at the conditions. Like you're not gonna—
No, you didn't say you did not say the criteria are influenced by the environment. What you said is that somebody meeting or failing to meet the criteria is influenced by the environment. The criteria themselves being influenced by the environment is not a point that you have touched on thus far.
gonna gaslight me into thinking that they don't— do they measure your gender with a speculum? No. They ask you. You know, it's a big complex net, and the medicalization of mental illness and neuroatypicality has actually made it a lot harder to deal with these conditions. You know, it actually hurts because
there it is again. It's deal with these conditions. There are conditions that need to be dealt with, and they need to be changed in some way. That you're being the wrong way if you're autistic. Good God, man. Good God.
then rather than thinking of these as like sort of a
I think
holistic
this
summary
one
of,
is.
sort of what's going on in your
I
head
think
and like
this
how
one
you
is
are as a
not
person, you think of it
doable.
as a diagnosis. It's a condition. You have a condition. Actually hurts, because then rather than thinking of these as like sort of a holistic summary of, sort of what's going on in your head and like how you are as a person, you think of it as a diagnosis. It's a condition. You have a condition. And I think that mentality can be really like deleterious. And in case anyone's getting blindsided
Why is it deleterious?
by this has been my position for 5 years running, okay? And every time this comes up, I say the same thing and people get mad every time. But read Foucault. The medicalization of mental health has been...
No, stop saying read Foucault. You haven't read Foucault. It bears repeating since there are new people here. Foucault did not talk about whether or not he thought madness was genetic or if it was like society causing it all. This was not part of his project. It just wasn't. And when he did talk about stuff that's like related to this, like the treatment of the mad, as in like how the medical establishment tried to treat madness, one of the things that he spoke out against is the idea that the idea of treatment via proper habituation. Like, this is one of the kinds of treatments that he talks about and analyzes as being an instrument of domination. Like, this is like, oh my god. AO doesn't say much about autism. Because at the time AO was written, autism wasn't like it didn't have, it hadn't really fully formed into something. Autism used to be a subset of childhood schizophrenia, and it wasn't until later that it became kind of its own thing. They do say they basically in I think in the first chapter they talk about how schizophrenics can become autistic in their behavior through institutionalization. I could be remembering that wrong, but that was I I believe they talked about that. Um, yeah. Yeah, so true.
to the detriment of our mental health. People are not getting mentally healthier. Is that why you take Adderall?
Oh my fucking god.
Mental health running, okay? And every time this comes up, I say the same thing and people get mad every time. But read Foucault. The medicalization of mental health has been to the detriment of our mental health. People are not getting...
No. 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 God. That isn't what he said. He didn't say that it was to the detriment of our mental health, man. He wasn't saying that it was like self-undermining in this way. He was problematizing the very category of mental unwellness and madness. Like, this was the Oh my fucking god. Why? Jesus Christ, man.
getting mentally healthier. Is that why you take Adderall? I take Adderall because it helps.
Like, this is the problem, is that he thinks that there is this thing that we call health and that it really exists and that we can measure it objectively. Like, oh my fucking god.
Helps me manage the symptoms of my ADHD. Also makes me zoom. What about it? Was that like an attempt at a gotcha? What are you getting me on? If I said you shouldn't take Adderall, it's also tasty. That's true. Dextroamphetamine be delicious when dipping it in melted chocolate be the vibe. Sorry, that took me a second. You gave people the impression it's purely sociogenic. No, I didn't. That was in your head.
No! No! Like, oh my fucking god. Alright, again, 12:46. We're gonna go back and we're gonna see how this video opened.
I do agree on the autism and ADHD thing. I don't think vaccines cause autism. I think modern society causes autism. It's not a chemical thing. Autism is just what happens to your brain when you have no friends, don't go outside, you watch cartoons all day. One of the cartoons you watch is My Little Pony's Friendship is Magic. You go into Google that at 12 and find pornography of it. Your brain...
Yeah, how dare people get the impression that he thinks it's entirely like sociocultural. How dare they get that impression? He never said that. It's just in your head. Ignore the evidence of your eyes and ears. Fucking Christ,
Be
man.
delicious when dipping it in melted chocolate be the vibe. Sorry, that took me a second. You gave people the impression it's purely sociogenic. No, I didn't. That was in your head. You imagine that. It's influenced by environment. That's what I said. I never said exclusively caused by environment. You did.
Oh my god, you said it was caused by modern society! I'm gonna scream.
Lamau? No, I didn't. I literally didn't. No, you explained it really poorly. No, I really didn't. I never used incorrect language the entire time we talked about this. You're just hysterical. I'm sorry. I just did. You're not getting me.
You're just hysterical. Oh my fucking god. Oh my god. I I'm going insane.
Hey, I've been doing this for too long, man. Maybe some other streamers, you could get them on this. This is like the 20th time I've had this argument. My position's the same every time, and every time afterwards, people are like, well, I think you said things that you definitely didn't say. Bro, this is all getting recorded. You think I'm not going to go look back?
Yeah, it is all being recorded. It is all being recorded. Which is why it's so weird that you're denying it.
Well, you're right, because I don't care that much, but I know I said the correct things. Often does not follow through on instructions and fails to finish schoolwork, chores, or duties in the workplace, e.g. loses focus, sidetracked, often has trouble organizing tasks and activities, often avoids, dislikes, or is reluctant to do tasks that require mental effort over a long period of time, such as schoolwork or housework, often loses things necessary for tasks and activities, e.g. school materials, pencils, books, tools, wallets, keys, paperwork, eyeglasses, mobile telephones, is often easily distracted, is often forgetful in daily activities. I think it's really liberating to remember of the sort of arbitrariety of diagnostic criteria, to remember that these are things literally all humans experience. The line we draw past which you say you have ADHD, that's subjective. Different doctors will draw different lines on that. There's no objective way of determining that. All humans sometimes have trouble organizing tasks and activities.
Yes, but that does not mean that modern society is causing it. Nor does it mean that the issue is that you're not taking personal responsibility and that you need to accept that your condition is malleable and that you can change yourself. This is like...
All humans are sometimes easily distracted. The extent to which you are or aren't can vary over your life. It can vary based on your environment. It can vary based on the day, who you're with, how you feel that day. It's all a lot more fluid than you might think. And you should be familiar with this kind of language if you've heard me talk about gender or sex, or even race, how a lot of like racial markers aren't just the literal, like how much melanin's in your skin, but a bunch of like social, cultural, political, economic markers that kind of determine what you pass as. It's pretty complicated. So it bothers me a little bit when people take a hardline essentialist perspective where they're like, no, it's your brain shape, your brain, and it's not.
Yeah, this is the... If only there were more than two positions, Vosh. If only there were more than two positions that you could take on this issue.
Not the same, and it can't change. And it's like, come on. I do think that the world we live in today produces more of this than even the world I grew up in. I remember back when I was a kid, there would be summer days where you had nothing to do, and you just had to cope with like laying on the couch bored as hell. And that shit sucked. But you had to, because like, what were you going to do, you know? And nowadays, that's not the case for like anyone. Everyone's got a smartphone, you know? And I didn't enjoy being bored, but I think the world is a lot more accommodating of a short attention span now, you know? People are out there using AR to gamify vacuuming their house, you know? I feel like people just have a shorter attention span.
Oh no, how dare we accommodate people with short attention spans? What a nightmare.
You get me. You can't just shit on the people, though. The social model of disability requires critique of the environment. But that's what I'm doing. I'm not shitting on people. Well, I'm shitting on you guys for being disagreeable, but like I'm not shitting on people of ADHD. I have ADHD. And it's not like I'm out there going like, I am morally obligated to correct my ADHD by going and living on a farm and having no external stimuli for months.
You were more or less saying that, or you were trying to say that in order to deal with quote unquote these conditions, that you need to have like a very specific understanding of them.
Until I recover and I'm able to stare unblinking motionlessly into the distance without getting bored. Like, why would I do that? I don't want to do that. I'm talking about the environment. I'm not saying like everyone's a moral... I don't give a shit if you're autistic. Hell yeah, man. Do you think it's possible that in the past growing up had things that caused your brain to grow out of autism as it developed as opposed to today? When I was younger, I was a weird kid. I was definitely a weird kid. And I stayed a weird kid like pretty much all the way up until college. And when I started streaming at the very beginning, I was still a weird kid. And I still am now to an extent, but a lot of the social gracelessness has been sandblasted off of my brain from the pressure of being exposed to the scrutiny of literally, at times, millions of people. As I record...
Has it really, though? Has it really, man? Has it really? How much of it is you faking it until you make it versus you actually... like, it literally being sandblasted off of you, man? Not to mention that, like... you can't compare it when you're a popular figure, you know? Like how do I explain this? You know, in any conversation, it takes two to tango, right? It takes two people. And one of the things that determines your social skills in a conversation is also how much the other person is willing to give you grace in what you say and do. And you, as a public figure, are given a lot more grace in what you say and do than other people. Because you have a bunch of fans out here who are willing to interpret you in the most charitable possible light. So how much of it is you having it sanded off versus you basically being treated differently because of your status? So like somebody like Elon Musk, you know? Elon Musk claims to be autistic, and I believe it. I believe he's autistic. And yet, he has a tremendous amount of social status and a tremendous amount of pull and a tremendous amount of people who are willing to fawn over him, who are willing to give him the benefit of the doubt no matter what he does, and are willing to give him grace in what he does. Would he be afforded that benefit if he were not the richest man in the entire world? I don't think he would be. He definitely wouldn't be. So it is both directions. It is omnidirectional here. It isn't just that you got better at being sociable. It's that your status changed the way that people expected you to behave and changed the way that they judged your behavior.
Myself day in and day out. You have to be a lot more aware of what you're doing when you're in that position. Yeah, of course I'm still weird. I'm not saying I'm not. But being weird and being autistic aren't the same thing. That's called masking. Don't tell me how I'm feeling. You presumptive shits. Initially, it felt like masking. Now, I'm like this all the time. Why? Because your personality changes. That's what's supposed to do. As you grow, I was subjected to a new environment. There was a pressure, and now
Why is your personality supposed to change, quote unquote? Like, if your personality changes in response to an environmental stimulus, but it changes for the worse for you, is that a good thing? Is it supposed to do that? Maybe, in a sense, in like the very broadest sense that it might help you cope in that situation. But does that mean it was just, and that there was something wrong with you before, and now that there isn't? Like,
I'm a different person. That's fine. Isn't that fine? How is that any different from a person just changing due to their environment? An allistic person goes to a new job, like working on an Alaskan fishing vessel, and they become a different person, and it's like, oh, that's masking? No. Masking is a very specific...
Yes. Like, to an extent. Like, masking is not necessarily about autism specifically. Like, you can mask if the world, or if autism were the default state of things, the neurotypical people might mask. The reason we call it masking is, when it's autistic people doing it, is generally because they aren't accustomed to doing that kind of thing, and they generally, like, chafe at it in a lot of cases. I chafe at it. I chafe at, like, the things that I do in my daily life that I don't feel like I should have to do. It doesn't come naturally to me. It doesn't, like, feel great when I do it. And, I'm saying this as somebody who doesn't really even attempt to mask most of the time. I'm happy to be perceived, however. Like, I don't know. I generally, like, just don't try because I feel icky doing that. I feel inauthentic. But, sometimes it's necessary. And when I do it, I don't really enjoy doing it. Sorry, I need a drink of water.
Deliberate effort to hide symptoms of autism or whatever else. And at first it felt like that. And now I'm straight chilling. Do you think that's worse? Do you think I am worse for that? Because I feel great. I've never been so happy.
I'm glad that you're so happy, man. But do you not think that maybe there's an issue in trying to prescribe how you feel onto everybody else? Or, for example, saying that giving people the idea that they are in the wrong for how they interface with the world versus you who has it correct.
If anything, I feel like the insistence
Right,
that
I think
I
this is a
have done something
50-50
wrong
now.
is like the deaf people who are
Let's
mad
see
at
this
babies getting cochlear implants or something. You know what I mean? Like you're kind of like trying to pull the crab back into the bucket. Who said it was wrong? I say the insistence that it's masking comes across as a bit malicious, in my opinion. That comes across a little bit, you know, is masking wrong? The accusation that one is masking when they say they're not, I think there's a little bit to that, you know? This irks me the way TERFs say you can fix gender dysphoria by thinking correct thoughts. Why? It seems to me like you're fighting a war in your own mind. I don't see why. Are you
Do you really not see like the do you really not see like the parallel here where you seem to think that like just by properly habituating yourself that you can become non-autistic, man? Like do you not see the parallel here between this and what TERFs say that if you are just raised in the correct environment, your gender will align with your sex?
are you against the idea that you can like change as a person? You literally can. No? Then what's the issue? That sounds like lying to yourself until it becomes second nature, but what do I know, lol? What you're engaging in, and I say this as contemptuously as your mental state can handle, is the language of weakness, and I don't respect you. You are a
Oh my god. Language. Oh my fucking god, man. Go 5 seconds without sounding fascistic, please.
in a bucket. Like it's like, do you think there's any pride to be had in not growing or changing as a person? This is exactly what I mean. Okay, let's go back to our okay. Yeah,
Oh my god, it's not. Okay, I'm just gonna let him continue.
we have delay on this quite a bit. It's going to be a long ass stream, but I maintain every point that I made. Okay, as someone with a background in psychology, I just want to raise the possibility you were misdiagnosed with autism. You don't know what I was like as a kid, man. I think that I know more about psychology than you. I'm sorry. The idea that
Oh my god, seriously. The fucking arrogance, man. The arrogance.
it's impossible for people to change and meet or not meet the criteria at different points in their life is not at all controversial in psychology. I don't know why you would suggest that. That's not a controversial position. I promise you. If you go to if you look at in like any research in the diagnostic criteria, or you talk to a psychologist, the idea that a person could like at different stages in their life meet or not meet it, that's literally becoming or not becoming autistic. That's what that means. That's what that means. If you
Then you think. Oh my god. Oh my god. You said earlier that you don't think that you can cure autism, and then here you are saying that you could just change, that if you just like did the right things in your life that you would become not autistic, and that you need to take personal responsibility for the way that you are. Like, I don't know, man. I don't think that people are wrong for connecting the dots in that way.
meet it, that's autism. If you don't, that's not autism. If you switch back and forth between those lines, that's you becoming or not becoming. That's what it means. It's pretty arbitrary, isn't it? Vosh did not grow out of autism/ADHD. He's in an environment where he thrives. You take him out of this environment and throw him into a 9 to 5, and he's just as screwed as the rest of us. The last comment I'm focusing on, because it's perfectly representative of the thing that I'm describing. You're a crab in a bucket. You're cooked, and I wish nothing but the worst for you. I'm sorry. You are the warden of your own mind prison. It's insane how much I'll read that again because I read it quickly. Vosh did not grow out of his ADHD/autism. He's in an environment where he thrives. I am, thank you. You take him out of this environment and throw him into a 9 to 5, and he's just as screwed as the rest of us. There's a vindictive mindset underlying this that is as malicious as the kinds of people who are out there claiming that vaccines cause autism. You're just on the other side of that fence, you know? Like you're just pulling people into the other bucket, essentially. You're the underlying malice and essentialism is disgusting. I'm not offended.
Good God, man. Trying to preach he's literally out here just preaching like Jordan Peterson-esque personal responsibility bullshit.
Offended by it. I mostly just like I feel bad for you because you're clearly speaking out of like a projected upsetness. But you have more power than you think you do to improve the circumstances in your own life. I promise you do. Okay, and that's the difference between
Yeah, what if improving this, do you not understand? My fucking god. Okay. It might be very advantageous for an autistic person to mask. In fact, it's a necessity. It might be preferable to the alternative, which is not masking, and as a result of not masking, being socially ostracized and not, having an income. You know? Could well be preferable to that. Does that mean that... Hold on, let me quickly listen again.
Me and, I don't know, some to improve the like a projected, upsetness. But you have more power than you think you do to improve the circumstances in your own.
So it could be that an autistic person masking is improving their circumstances in a very, narrow sense. Right? Does that mean it's a good thing that they are masking? That it's a good thing that they are being put into this box and forced to be a specific way? Because I don't think that's a good thing. But you're reinforcing that idea that, just so long, because ultimately your happiness is your own personal responsibility, that that society shouldn't need to accommodate you. You should just be different. Try being different. Try taking control of your life instead of demanding that society change in any way, and accept difference in some way.
Life. I promise you do, okay? And that's the difference between me and, I don't know, some RFK Jr. fan. Well, I think there are some other differences too, but this is one of the differences. I believe in you. I don't think autism is a thing that goes wrong with your brain because the vaccine made it that way. I think autism is, in many cases, a fleeting, sometimes not fleeting, exacerbation of traits all humans have. You've met a subjective diagnosis criteria, but your life and your mind are fluid, and you can change as you grow. And sometimes that change will lead you in different directions, and sometimes it won't. And neither of those are necessarily worse or better than the other. I believe in you. I thought you wanted...
You can't say that. You cannot say that after this entire time saying that, RFK is in some way speaking to a real problem. You cannot do it like that. Also, fuck. I think this is officially... I think this Minesweeper board is officially fucked. Well, no, yeah, because this is 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep. We just got a bunch of 50-50s. So, I guess this one is a 1 and 3. Well, hold on. It can either be here, or it can be somewhere here, right? So it should be more like 50% to be here, and then 25-25, probably, right? Because, right, if it's here, then it's safe, bomb, safe, bomb. Those are both safe. But then if it's here, it's safe, or it's safe, bomb, safe, and then either one of these could be bombs, right? I think that's the logic I'm going with. So I guess the question would be, which one would give me the most information? I think this one, because if I go here and it's 1, 2, 3, and if it's 4, for example, that wouldn't help me decide between here and here. So I have to go here. Fuck. Well, whatever. It's just how the cookie crumbles sometimes.
The worst for this individual. Yeah, but then I stopped being mad, and now I want the best for them. Sorry. It's kind of like the RFK. I mean, this is more productive than anything we're going to see in the goddamn Senate hearing, okay? Please look up the biopsychosocial model. No, I'm familiar with it. I'm aware. Yeah, the idea you have heavy overlaps between all of these, categories of influence on the mind. Yeah. Autism is simply never fleeting. Can you grow out of autism? Common misconceptions how to offer support. Neurological development changes with age for everyone, even autistic folks, but it doesn't mean you can grow out of autism. This is wrong. This is categorically wrong. You literally can grow, and your personality changes, and you no longer meet the diagnostic criteria.
Oh my god. Good god, man. I love how he's like, oh, all of the psychologists are on my side. For whatever that's worth, anyway. And, even the psychologists disagree with him.
I'm sorry. Can we accept that it's possible for these identities to be fluid without then thinking they're invalid? What about this? Maybe because you're all transgenders.
Maybe. Obviously, you can acknowledge that they're fluid. You can acknowledge that things are fluid. It's very easy, in fact, to acknowledge that things are fluid without then making prescriptions about how people should live their lives. It's just that you are not doing that. You are making prescriptions about how people live their lives, and you are giving credence to people like RFK Jr., who seem to think that, like, it's a social problem that autism is on the rise, or that, like, there's something, like, wrong with it, or that, you know, it's caused by some underlying factor that is, like, making people worse, like lack of socialization.
As well. Maybe I need to like frame it that way, okay? You can't like scold a person out of being transgender, but a trans femme might later decide they're non-binary, and that doesn't mean them being trans femme was wrong all along, and it doesn't mean that the whole thing was fake.
I know. I know, Vosh. I know. The issue is in then trying to give these unicausal explanations for why you think it's happening. You know? Like, I agree. I totally agree. If somebody is a trans femme and then they later decide to be non-binary instead, that does not mean that, you know, they were actually non-binary all along, that, like, their trans femininity was fake, anything like that. Of course not. It's of course not what it means. But it also does not mean that you can look at them and say modern society caused this, or you were this way because your friend group, like, pressured you into being trans. You know? It's more complicated than that. Nor does it mean that if, for example, somebody detransitions for reasons that are unrelated to their you know, like, trying to enact their, like, their own life, and, like, trying to live how they would like to live, does that mean that it was, like, okay for that to happen? Does that mean that, like, we don't need to change the way that society treats these things? Yeah. Yeah, exactly the problem. Exactly.
How about that? Bosch says medical science is fake and bad. This is actually an article. Close though. Is that fine? Like, if there's a trans woman and she's like, I'm a woman.
Let's see. Uh, let's see if this Psych Central article, right? Psych Central. Okay. Actually, hold on. Let me black my screen out real quick. Um. Drake Institute. I'm trying to find, like, his article. Who wrote this article? All right, let me go back to, yeah. So if you look at this article, I don't know if you can see or not because of the Minesweeper game. I can try to move that out of the way. Look in the top, right? Um, you know, this one was reviewed by a medical professional that that Vosh claims would all agree with him. Now, to be fair, this person is a behavioral analyst. That's what BCBAD means. It's I think, at least, or I might be thinking of something else. I think it's like a BCBA is, oh my fucking god, I can't remember what it stands for. But I think it is some kind of board It's a board certified behavioral analyst. That's right. So this person is it's actually even worse for Vosh than he thinks, because BCBA or ABA rather, which is applied behavioral analysis, which is what BCBAs do. They do applied behavioral analysis. The whole point of ABA is to correct, quote unquote, autistic people's behaviors. And so even when those people, and to be clear, some BCBAs and some ABA spokespeople do think that you can cure autism. So even when those people who like abuse autistic people for a living, don't think that you can grow out of it the way that Vosh seems to think. Like, what does that say? What does that say about him, man? What does that say about the way that he thinks? And like, if he really has like all of this evidence behind him.
You know, as women often do. And then later they're like, you know, I've been having some doubts and I think I might just be non-binary. I think I might be more of like an NB or something. Does that mean that the non-binary thing, like that was the only real thing all along and the woman thing was fake? Was she wrong about the woman thing when she was a woman, but now that they're non-binary, like that's like both phases are valid? I agree. And it doesn't mean either were fake. Now that you're all the transgenders, you all understand exactly what I mean.
Please stop saying that, Vosh. Please. I know it's a joke, but please just fucking stop.
Would you say a trans woman would have then used to be a man? That honestly, that's just like an etiquette thing. That like I don't know. Ask her. I don't know. She might say that. I know plenty of trans women.
Some trans people say that, and some of them don't. Some of them say they used to be men, and some of them don't say that they used to be men.
Who are like, yeah, back when I was a guy. Like I don't know, but that's not like a categorical assertion. It's more of a like how cavalier do they want to be about their identity kind of thing, you know?
Well, no, that's not it either. It's not about being cavalier necessarily either. Like, some of them just perceive it differently. Like, it could very well be a categorical distinction. Like, some trans people feel as if they literally were men before, and some trans people don't feel that way. Some trans people think they were always women, or that they were always women insofar as like once they knew like what gender was, they didn't ever feel correct as men. You know, I don't think that it's like I think you could absolutely say that there are differences in how people come to that realization and how they feel about uh their prior gender assignment.
No? How do we deal with the guilt of not trying hard enough with something like ADHD? Guilt's an unproductive emotion, okay? You should feel an earnest drive to do the best you can. Guilt doesn't it's not.
What is the best you can? This is the issue, is that like an earnest strive to do the best you can. What is the best you can do? What does that mean?
Not productive in any way, shape, or form. ASD is not on and off switch. It's an identification meant to help people get the proper support and guidance in place so they thrive and live in their magic. Live in their magic. Vosh telling people they can overcome their autism while being unfathomably autistic about it. I'm not telling people they can overcome it, because that would imply that you're going from a worse state to a better state. I'm saying that your environment influences your personality, and this is a personality type.
Oh my god. No, autism is not a personality type. It's a neurotype. Those are different things, man. Those are different things, man. You can have, like, any number of personalities are compatible with autism. Like, some of them are less common, sure, but it is not a personality type. I have met so many autistic people with so many different... Oh, shit, my fucking thing is still in the middle of the screen. I did not mean to... It is not a personality type. No. Like even in like the very medicalized language that you are trying to speak, no, it is not a personality type. It is a neurotype. That is why we have the words neurotypical and neurodivergent. It's the neuro is the operative word there. It is a neurotype. Holy shit, man.
That'd be like me saying you can overcome being a woman by transitioning to a man. Like, you can transition to a man. I wouldn't really describe it that way. And
But that is how the language you are using implies you feel about it. Because you are talking about it as if it is like a social ill that is happening, and that people who are disagreeing with you are failing in some way to take control of their lives. Like, do you not see how that might lead somebody to think that you want them to overcome their autism?
and if you can't change your environment, I'm not telling you to do anything. So autism is a
You are implying that people should be doing something. And you are also, I think pretty heavily implying that kids need to be raised differently so that they aren't autistic. Like what you said was basically that autism is being caused by people not being social enough. You know? And do you not think that people should be more social? Because if you do think that, then you are kind of implying that it is at least a symptom of a larger problem.
Type. Are you reading the shit on this? Many autistic folks consider ASD an aspect of their personality rather than some.
Hold on. He is being. No, it's better with the Minesweeper. What do you mean it's better with the Mind? The Minesweeper is there. It was just in the middle of the screen, and so you couldn't see the video.
To improve or fix. I'm in the damn bucket with the damn crab.
Yes. Oh my god. Anyway, sorry. Just to respond to what he said, like many autistic folks consider ASD an aspect of their personality. An aspect. Do you not read the word aspect? Some people consider being a girl to be part of their personality, to be an aspect of their personality. But does that mean that womanhood is a personality type? No! It does not mean that! Good God. No, I'm not putting on fucking Subway Surfers.
I want to look into this. Read Foucault. Yeah, I do think this.
No! Stop! Oh my fucking God. You should read Foucault. You should read Foucault, man. You have never read Foucault. You have never, ever read Foucault. I don't believe you. I do not believe that you have ever read Foucault. I do not believe you. The most I will say is that maybe you read a chapter or two while you were in college. But clearly you have not read him sincerely or deeply. Because if this is what you took away from Foucault, you got it wrong. If anything, what I think you have read, or what I think you have heard, is like the osmosis pop culture version of Foucault that you would get from like a right-winger who is like badly interpreting what Foucault said.
No. You can't say that autism is a diagnosis based on like a set of criteria that can change over time, but then say it's impossible to like change whether or not a person is autistic, you know? Those are mutually exclusive. The article's correct. The article is objective.
No, those are not mutually exclusive. Here's an example. Whether or not a black hole will come and swallow the Earth is a product of a trillion different antecedent conditions in space that who knows what will happen, right? So roaming black hole, maybe there will just be a roaming black hole that will come and gobble up the entire universe, right? Not the entire universe, rather, the entire solar system. We don't know that that won't happen. It could happen, right? And if and or when that happens, it will be the product of all of these antecedent factors in space and in like the interaction of different spatial bodies. Does that mean then that we can control when a black hole will come and swallow up our solar system. Of course not. Of course it does not mean that. So just to, I'm gonna
like say that damn bucket with the damn crabs. I want to look into this. Read Foucault. Yeah, I do think this article's wrong though. You can't say that autism is a diagnosis based on like a set of criteria that can change over time, but then say it's impossible to like change whether or not a person is autistic.
So yeah, it is perfectly possible to affirm that autism is environmentally influenced without also affirming that it is possible for you to change whether or not a person is autistic. Because if we don't know what causes people to be autistic, then we cannot change them to not be autistic. Obviously, we can't do that if we don't know how, or if we don't have control over the factors that lead to it. So they are not mutually exclusive.
You know, those are mutually exclusive. The article's correct. The article is objectively incorrect. The problem is they're
Oh my fucking god, dude. Like, this was, I mean, look, you were the one who decided to tie your own understanding to like medical legitimacy and saying that all, like, any psychologist would tell you the exact same thing that you're saying. You know? That was your decision. And now that it's biting you in the ass, like, you're reneging on it, basically. It's ridiculous, man. It's ridiculous. Well, shit. I think this one's probably a loss. Right? Yeah. There's one here, like, we have no idea where it could be. Well, maybe not. It could be that we get to... Oh, no, but then it could be here, and... Oh, but if it's there, then it's also there, right? So if we get to the end and there are exactly 2 left, then we know that all of these ones are safe, right? So that would help. So I guess I'll just hold out hope for that.
doing the same thing you guys are doing. They're saying that if a person can potentially grow out of or into autism, the implication then is that everyone should grow out of autism.
You are the one making that implication by, like, associating it with a lack of socialization and going outside, man. You are the one making that implication. Like, you can't just, like, use, like, very charged language like that and then throw up your hands and say, no, how dare you assume that I think that you need to take control of your life? Or, like, for example, whenever you respond to somebody who is trying to criticize you, you, like, make this, like, aspersion against them about how they're just being insecure. Like, what do you... And that they don't want to acknowledge the control they have over their own life. Like, what do you... You're the one who's implying this. Good God, man. Good God.
An implication.
Oh, for sure. That definitely is a bugbear for him.
People in chat still think I'm saying that. Chat's making me miss RK Jr. Yeah. But that's just due to the inaccuracy of social definitions. No. That is the definition. You're not pointing to some underlying fact of the mind or whatever. You're just describing a set of criteria that are socially determined. You're not, like, this is what I mean by the medicalization of
They are socially determined in both respects, though. They are socially determined both in the sense that what criteria we decide count towards autism are determined, but it is also socially determined whether or not somebody fits the criteria in the first place. So, for example, for a very long time, it was very hard for women to get diagnosed with autism, for any reason, really. It was extremely difficult because of the way that clinicians talked about it applying to women, and the way, and like what they wanted to look for in women.
of the mental health. Like, you convinced yourself that you're using social attributes to get at an increasingly specific diagnosis of an underlying biological truth, but that's not true. You're going at it the wrong way. It's only.
But you are thinking that there is this underlying like norm that is like the default, and that society is in some way corrupting it.
Social diagnoses. Different societies might classify different things as autistic. No society is more correct than the other. There's no underlying fact of the world you're pointing to. It's not like a broken bone or something where there's a fracture or whatever. Let's spend the next 4 years talking about you.
How do you know, man? Like, what is a fracture? What is a fracture?
People are such sissies, man. Used to be able to spend all goddamn stream arguing with chat. Nowadays, you go on a 30-minute rampage, and people lose their damn minds. I see what Vosh is saying, but it comes across sounding like my parents taking my diagnosis. See, since you know you're ADHD, you shouldn't forget things, and you should know better. I've never said that, and I would never say that. Differences in brains of autistic people. That's oh my god. You're actually, you realize there are differences in brains for men and women, right? Go on, walk it back, walk it back. So you can't transition from man to woman? Ah, did you know there are brains? You're a turf, bro. Literally, you.
Oh my god, dude. Oh my god. Still doing this. Okay. Like, again, his chat is not being very good on this either, but he's using that very flimsy opposition to make very, very bad points.
You can't apply the lessons you've learned in one category to another. You're failing the LSAT. Female brain truther. Oh, didn't you know the way it lights up in the screen, it looks different? How do you explain severely autistic people? Easily? What do you mean? What have I said that's countered by... Do you think I've said all autistic people can easily shift in and out of being autistic? What do you think I'm saying?
You have kind of... You haven't necessarily said that it's easy, but you have kind of implied that people need to take better control of their lives, and that their inability to do so reflects in their opposition to you as an insecurity, or an insecurity that leads to their opposition to what you're saying.
Do you have any scientific evidence of people being able to stop being autistic? Yeah, people who will meet diagnostic criteria for autism when they're younger, and then when they get older, they don't anymore. That's literally them stopping being autistic. That's what that means. That's not scientific evidence. That is literally what that means.
Okay, even from the medical model, it's not. Because, again, clinicians are not like gods. And there is a social dimension to whether or not you're even counted to fit a criteria. So, like, even from, like, this medical perspective that he's adopting, you could very easily just say that they were misdiagnosed.
Autism doesn't mean anything besides meeting the diagnostic criteria. If you meet it, and then you stop meeting it, that is you no longer being... Wasn't really clear what you were saying. It was, you're just struggling a little bit, but that's okay. That's why we do these for 40 minutes every time, so everyone can catch up. Your understanding of transness is so low-res and bad faith it reflects in your general neurology. How can you, of the audacity, to accuse me of having a bad understanding of transness?
You have a bad understanding of transness, man. You do. You do have a bad understanding of transness. Or at the very least, you seem to think that, like, you're not able to recognize the way in which you're just taking, like, a different position on the way that the gender binary works. Yeah, exactly. Exactly, Shattenkor. Like, of course he didn't say it was easy. No one ever said it was, like, it doesn't need... Whether or not he said it was easy is not, like, the most important factor here.
I've had to deal with? Get out of here. Get out of here. I'm actually the single best advocate for trans people on Earth, don't you know? Are you saying that you can grow into a version of autism/ADHD which is more manageable as an adult? The definition of autism is when you meet a certain number of subjective diagnostic criteria. If later in life you don't meet that criteria, you are medically no longer autistic. An autism diagnosis only refers to the diagnosis. It doesn't refer to some underlying dot in your brain. There are other tests for diagnosis? Yeah? And they're all like that. None of them are like calipers. You can have different tests, sure, and what if you don't pass those tests anymore? This is not true. This is the definition of ASD, not autism. Shut it. What do you... As soon as chat said they were born with personality disorders, they lost all credibility. I just don't even know. Vosh, where are you getting this definition? Well, we're looking at diagnosing ADHD right now. How do you diagnose ADHD?
Oh my god. All right, again, even within like the medical model, there is a difference between testing for something and knowing the underlying causes of that thing. Like in principle, any any non-observable thing, like a proton, for example, an electron, how do we test for protons or electrons? We need to convert it into something that's observable. Some people use that to say that protons and electrons don't exist, or at least that we don't have a what's it called? That they're useful fictions, basically. That they are a means of systematizing the observable data that doesn't necessarily reflect like the natural kinds that actually exist in the world, right? Like this is like a constructive empiricist position on science. Does Vosh have that idea? Because like he's more than welcome to talk about that, and that like about like what autism is, and say that like autism um is medically diagnosed via this, and that this is kind of like all you really need for autism. But but it does not mean like, because like the medical diagnostic criteria think, or the people who made these diagnostic criteria think that they are touching on something that is underlying all people with autism in some way, or at least a lot of them do. And clearly Vosh thinks they're wrong, and for what it's worth, I do too. I also think that they're wrong. Isn't But he cannot claim to have like the medical establishment on his side when he is demonstrably saying something that is not within the medical mainstream. This is not how most people think of it.
That's what it means to diagnose ADHD. I genuinely don't understand. Okay, for people, can somebody explain to me what they think autism is, if not the sum of diagnostic criteria? What underlying fact do you think is being pointed to? Why are you conflating ADHD and autism? I'm not. They're two different things. That's not conflating. That's not what the word conflating means. You don't know what the word conflating means?
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably gonna go soon. I've been streaming for like 2 hours at this point, right? Like, yeah, I don't know how much more of this I can take. Um,
You have a developmental disorder that prevents you from understanding what the word conflating means. So many people are seething at Vosh because they think autism is their main personality trait. It's learned helplessness. They don't like the way.
oh my fucking god! Here he goes again. Here he goes again. Like, are you serious, man? When autistic people claim, like, or complain about having to mask, and complain about the fact that society makes them do that, that is like, it's definitionally not learned helplessness, because they are not learning to be helpless. They are learning to change their behavior in response to a specific environmental stimuli. In a sense, there is like there is a it's not impossible for there to be learned helplessness um for an autistic person. Like, if they are like in a very controlled environment, if nothing that they do seems to end up uh producing a good result for them, then they might start to just atrophy in their behaviors. But what people are talking about here is not learned helplessness. It isn't this idea that there's nothing that they can do to change their life. It's that it is a moral opposition to the idea that they should have to change in specific ways. That, good God, man, good God.
Their life is going, and they resent the idea that there's any possibility whatsoever that they could take ownership over how they handle the circumstances in their life. I've seen it a million times. It's been the main reason why people in chat get mad at me for 5 years, because I don't have a failure mindset, and some people do. Clean your rooms. So far, you pointed to Foucault and some people changing. Do you have any studies or medical research you've read that makes you okay? Trans magical girl. Since you're so interested, okay, let's do this back and forth right now, okay? What is autism if not a diagnosis?
He's not pointing to anything. And it's so frustrating because there is stuff he could point to. Again, I mentioned this paper earlier. It's called ASB validity. You could point to that paper. You could talk about it. I don't think he's read that paper, though, because he's not... This is entirely off the dome for him. This is not, like, something he has researched at all. This is not something he's looked into.
Diagnosis based on meeting certain criteria. Here's another example. A broken bone is a broken bone, whether or not it's diagnostically assessed. You don't need to go to a doctor to check on that one. If you see a bone that's been split in two pieces, there's an objective criteria. If you want, you could...
But no, you do need to get it assessed. You absolutely need to get a broken bone assessed, because you can't see into your fucking arm or your like anything. You can't, like, what do you think an X-ray is? What do you think? Why do you think they have X-rays? It's to see into your arm. Like, you don't necessarily know if your bone is broken if you don't get an X-ray. Yeah. Like, you could cut your arm open and then probably bleed out from all of that, you know? But until you actually, like, see the bone, you don't know that it's a broken bone. This is a shitty example, man. Like, maybe, like, you could have at least gone with, like, a rash or something, because you can tell if you have a rash. Though you may not know what that rash is. Yeah.
get into the molecules.
Exactly the problem. Like, a lot of people don't realize that they have broken bones. So you oftentimes do actually need to see the bone in order to know that you have a broken bone.
Oh, well, what about a hairline fracture? Is that a break? And I acknowledge there is actually a lot of ambiguity there. All definitions are fuzzy. But, you know,
What?
There's an objective marker.
No! You... Now, I acknowledge that the definition is fuzzy, but actually there is an objective marker. I'm just going to ignore that I just said that... God damn it, man. I'm gonna fucking crash out, man. I'm gonna crash out. What am I...
With autism, what is being pointed to exactly, if not a set of diagnoses? What besides the criteria? I'm asking you specifically. Then why does science disagree with you? It doesn't. It doesn't. You just...
Okay. Again, this is not my view. Gonna say again, this is not my view. But a lot of people, a lot of medicalizing people do think that there is some underlying structure or like brain structure to the way that that's common to all autistic people, and that you can, like, maybe one day we will find a specific biomarker for it. I don't really agree with those people, but why couldn't somebody from Vaush's opposition just say that that's what it is? Because that's what a lot of medical people think that it is. That's what they say that it is.
just aren't familiar with it. Developmental delays are measurable. What does that have to do with what I've said? Do you believe someone can grow out of Down syndrome then? Down syndrome is literally caused by an extra chromosome. It's nothing to do. You're just, again, in your head, you're like, so what Vaush is saying is everything's fake and all mental stuff is willpower. That's not what I'm saying. I'm asking a specific and pointed question. Trans Magical Girl has an answer. I'm not interested in arguing the diagnoses. Okay, then I have nothing to say to you. Yeah, why do you think they call it autism spectrum disorder? There's a spectrum of human behavior and character traits. Lame? Of course it's lame, because people are just mad. So lupus is a social... So Vaush thinks the Black Plague is a social construct, does he? I'm back in the good old days. Would you consider this a productive discussion about mental health?
I mean... oh my god. You understand that, like, a lot of diseases, before we had, like, germ theory, and before we had, like modern medicine, like, a lot of diseases literally are just, like, social constructs. In the sense that, like, what we characterize as, like, being a virus from the same, like, being the same virus as another thing, you know? Those lines are also arbitrary. You know? We call something the common cold. Is there, like, one specific thing that we know exactly is the common cold? Of course we don't. And that's why we don't have a cure for the common cold. Because we have no fucking idea. Like there's so much variation among different things that we call the common cold. So like there is also a social constructive element in all kinds of diseases, you know? Yeah, yeah, exactly. Virus taxonomies are extremely complicated and oftentimes like not what you would expect, you know? Like it is not like this solid objective marker. The same is true of species categorizations, you know? Like where's the line between humans and non-humans? You know, we choose where to draw that line genetically.
Health? Yes. Well, you think just because things are like slightly heated that it's bad? What happened to you people? A culture of weakness. Come on, autism is a common.
Oh my fucking god. Please, Vosh, try not to sound fascistic, like for 1 second in your entire life.
A developmental cause of the psychiatric condition that results in the diagnosis of ASD. Okay, then how do you point to autism if not the diagnostic criteria? What other way is there? When you're looking at a broken bone, you're looking at the broken bone itself. You guys are literally describing autism as though it's a magical characteristic, unalterable in your mind. Oh, guys, even though the only way we can assess its existence is through the diagnoses and people's diagnostic responses can change over time, that doesn't mean the underlying magical factor in your brain hasn't changed or has changed. Like, you're literally arguing magic. It's unscientific. Like, in your brain.
I mean, again, man, like it's again, this is not my view, but this is how a lot of science works, man. This is how like we can't observe subatomic particles directly. We can't observe individual atoms directly or even microbes. None of those can be observed directly. So if you want to take like an anti-realist line in general, sure, go for it, man. Become a constructive empiricist. But I don't think you would. So it feels weird to me that you are like making this like you're splitting this hair.
There's a soul, there's a spiritual node, and that node makes you autistic. No matter what changes, even if your personality shifts over time, that's you're autistic. Now
and you are like talking about like this spiritual willpower. Like you are not escaping from this like underlying thing where you seem to think that like society layers on top of you autism or something. Like you are still you are still adhering to this like idea of the soul and like the inscription and the will, like this transcendental will that underlies everything. Like man, you are doing the same thing.
the only way we know if that soul is there is by using diagnostic criteria. Now, the diagnostic criteria might give us different answers or not, but once it says you have it, you always have it, because in the future, any changes to the diagnostic criteria answers might just mean, I don't know, the spiritual node has gone quiet. Like, I don't think you guys understand. You're talking about autism the way people like RFK Jr. do. An innate characteristic of the brain, like a functional flaw.
No. No. You were saying earlier that you were agreeing with him. What am I? Oh my god.
Law created by in a way that like like permanently impairs you. It's an anti-sociological.
No. No. This is the it. No. Because you are fundamentally thinking of it in terms of impairment. This is not how they think of it. This is not how they think of it, man. You are the one imposing the impairment like thing onto them.
Logical way of thinking about things. Anti-medical, anti-scientific. Why does ADHD medication work then? What do you think what does that have to do? Because the ADHD, what? Why wouldn't it? I'm sorry, anti-depression medication can help with depression. Are you suggesting then depression must be an innate, unchanging characteristic? Let's think before you say things. You think you can't take medication to address characteristics of the mind that are influenceable by environment? Like it's impossible to get better if you're depressed or anxious? Depression can't just be grown out of though? I don't know if you're speaking from personal experience, but I promise you, to anyone in chat struggling with depression, it actually can get better. You actually can no longer be depressed. And if the depression alleviates as you get older, you can, grow out of it. Like, that's absolutely possible. In fact, that happens to most humans because a lot of people get depressed when they're like teenagers, like all teenagers. What are you talking
I mean, yes and no. The issue is that the diagnostic criteria for depression has changed.
about? Dr. Lita, you're like 16. You're like, there's no way this torment will ever end. If more people get an x-ray, more people are diagnosed, and it seems like more bones are broken. Are you suggesting that broken bones can't be environmentally caused? People drag racing, hitting everyone on the sidewalks, and you're like, okay, yeah, well, the increase in broken bones across the city are just caused by like an increase in people getting x-rays for broken bones, obviously. What are you talking about? Why are you arguing when you got nothing to say? Autism is defined as not being able to stop being autistic. It's not. You're just making that up. I don't know why you're making it up. I don't know how you benefit from making it
Okay,
up.
so this three, so this has to be safe. What? Oh, right. There we go.
In the definition of autism is that it's permanent and can't change. You can find that in the DSM-5. I hate when Vosh reverts back to his neckbeard soy self like this. I do like being reminded sometimes that even though I objectively had like a neckbeard soy vibe back in like 2020 or whatever, that a lot of the time when people called me that, it was just because they didn't like it when I called them out on being wrong. Like, a lot of people just only like me when I'm presenting the news to them or giving them analyses they already agree with, but the moment I'm presenting some information they don't like intuitively vibe with, they get really weird and defensive and aggressive. Notice how a lot of the people in chat who disagree with me aren't just like disagreeing with me, they're just like attacking me or making really weird assertions about me. It's kind of crazy. Vosh, how much of this is brain chemistry? All of it is. Your brain chemistry can be affected by environmental factors.
You said earlier it wasn't. You said earlier it wasn't a chemical thing. Sure, whatever.
If you watch a horror movie, your brain chemistry will be changed by the spook in your brain. That's how it is. That's why this stuff is complicated. It's all like really, really, really intertwined. Your brain is the chemistry. There is no brain chemistry. The brain is the chemistry. That's the brain. Autism is socially.
No. Okay. All right. I think I'm gonna stop there. My voice is getting hoarse, and I'm kind of losing my momentum here. Oh my god. God, that was so bad. That was so bad, man. It was like even worse than I thought it was gonna be, honestly. Yeah. I don't know. I guess just to wrap up, Vosh, if for some reason you're watching this, debate me. You know, if you think you can defend this position, debate me. And we will see if you can do that. All right. Anyway, thank you everybody for coming. I enjoyed getting that off my chest, actually. Um yeah. Yeah, take care everybody. Goodbye.